In 1822, hundreds of people sailed across the Atlantic to live in a country that wasn't there. They carried maps, land titles, tools, family belongings, and money printed by a nation they had never seen. Some had sold their homes. Some had spent their savings. Some brought their children. They believed that when they reached the coast, a new life would be waiting for them. A capital city, fertile land, a government, and a future. But when the ship approached the shore, something was wrong. There was no city, no harbor, no roads, no officials, and no welcoming crowd. Just coastline, heat, insects, and trees. The settlers had not arrived too early. They had not taken the wrong route. They had sailed across the ocean toward a country that existed mostly on paper, and the man who sold it to them was already far away. His name was Gregor MacGregor, and this is the story of Poyais, the fake country scam where people were not just sold land, they were sold a nation. MacGregor was born in Scotland in 1786, but what mattered most was not where he came from. It was what people believed he was. To the public, he looked like exactly the kind of man you might trust, with an overseas opportunity. He had military experience. He had fought in Latin America, and he carried himself like a gentleman and a soldier. In the early 1800s, that image was powerful. Britain was fascinated by the Americas, and people were hearing stories about land, wealth, and freedom across the ocean. MacGregor understood that dream. People do not just buy land. They buy the story of who they will become after they own it. So when he returned to Britain, he brought back a story almost too perfect to resist. He claimed that an indigenous ruler on the Mosquito Coast of Central America had granted him authority over a vast territory. He called it Poyais, and he did not present himself as a businessman. He presented himself as its ruler, the Cazique of Poyais. The title sounded official, foreign, and difficult to challenge. Most people in Britain knew almost nothing about the Mosquito Coast. They had no satellite images, no online records, and no easy way to check whether MacGregor was telling the truth. So they judged him by what they could see. And what they could see looked convincing. MacGregor did not simply say Poyais existed. He built an entire reality around it. There were maps, land certificates, official-looking documents, advertisements, government bonds, printed guides, and even currency from the Bank of Poyais. On paper, Poyais had everything: a capital city called St. Joseph, a government, a constitution, natural resources, rich soil, clean rivers, and a climate supposedly suitable for Europeans. It was described not as a dangerous frontier, but as a paradise waiting to be developed. That was the genius of the scam. MacGregor did not sell jungle. He sold order. He did not sell risk. He sold certainty. He sold a country. And before we laugh at the people who believed him, it is worth asking a harder question. If someone showed you maps, legal documents, banknotes, advertisements, and a decorated military man standing behind it all, how long would it take you to doubt it? The victims were not cartoon fools throwing money at an obvious fantasy. They were trusting the same signals people still trust today: paperwork, confidence, branding, status, and a story that sounded just plausible enough. Once a lie becomes paperwork, many people stop seeing it as a lie. You sign the form, receive the certificate, exchange the money, hold the banknotes, and suddenly, the fantasy feels real. MacGregor sold land in Poyais. He sold government bonds. He sold currency. He sold a national dream. For investors, Poyais was a chance to get in early. For settlers, it was a chance to start over. For MacGregor, it was the perfect product, because every victim saw what they wanted to see. Then MacGregor crossed the line that turned a fraud into a disaster. He did not just convince people to invest in Poyais. He convinced them to move there. In 1822, settlers began boarding ships from Britain, bound for a country they believed was waiting for them. This was no longer just a financial scam. People were placing their lives inside the lie. They packed tools to build homes, supplies to start farms, documents that said land was theirs, and Poyaisian dollars that looked official but would become useless the moment they touched reality. Imagine holding that currency on the ship, a printed note from a new nation, a symbol of everything you had been promised. To the passengers, it may have felt like proof, but paper can lie, a map can lie, a seal can lie, a title can lie. And when the settlers reached the coast, every piece of paper they carried began to collapse. There was no capital city of St. Joseph, no functioning government, no prepared settlement, no roads, no farms, no organized society ready to receive the families who had crossed the ocean. They had been promised a country. What they found was a harsh coastline. Food was limited. Disease spread. They had money no one accepted, land titles no one honored, and plans that depended on institutions that were not there. This is where Poyais becomes more than an absurd historical scam. A fake investment can ruin a person, but a fake country can kill them. These people were not in a London office, realizing their money was gone. They were thousands of miles from home, with families to protect and no easy way back. The documents that had seemed so powerful in Britain could not build shelter. They could not create food. They could not stop fever. On paper, Poyais had a capital, land, currency, and a future. But paper does not feed you. Paper does not clear roads. Paper does not make a country real. Many settlers became sick. Many died. Survivors were eventually rescued and taken to British Honduras, now Belize. But for many, everything was gone. Savings, homes, the dream of a new life, and for some, their families. Back in Britain, the question became unavoidable. How had one man convinced people to sail to a country that was not there? The answer is not that he told one big lie. The answer is that he built an entire system of belief. A title, a map, a banknote, a printed guide, and a confident man in the right room could make a false reality feel solid. That was the machinery of Poyais. It was not just a scam. It was a brand, a fictional country with a name, a ruler, a capital, a currency, and a migration plan. MacGregor created enough structure around the fantasy that people could step into it. And once they stepped in, doubt became expensive. If you have only heard about Poyais, you can still walk away. But if you have bought land, exchanged your savings, told your family you are starting a new life, and boarded the ship, doubt may arrive too late. When the disaster became known, MacGregor did not confess. He denied responsibility and suggested that others had ruined a plan that was supposed to work. When a person loses everything to a scam, the truth can be almost unbearable. The money was not badly invested. It was stolen. The journey was not unlucky. It was based on a lie. The dream was not delayed. It was manufactured. And MacGregor did not stop easily. After the British disaster, he continued promoting versions of the Poyais scheme elsewhere, including in France. He was arrested there, but the idea of Poyais kept reappearing in different forms. More claims, more certificates, more promises, more paper. That is why the story still feels modern. Today, the fake country may not look like a country. It may look like a crypto project, an investment platform, a private community, or a startup promising impossible returns. The details change. The machinery stays the same. Create authority, show documents, use confident language, make the opportunity feel limited, make the victim feel early, make doubt feel like fear, make belief feel like intelligence, and above all, sell a future. That was Gregor MacGregor's real product. Not land, not currency, not bonds, a future. He did not need Poyais to be real in Central America. He only needed it to be real in the minds of his victims long enough for them to pay, pack, and sail. Gregor MacGregor went further than selling something he did not own. He sold a nation that existed mostly in imagination. He sold its land, its money, its debt, and its future. And then real people sailed toward it. When they reached the shore, the illusion finally broke. No capital, no roads, no government, no paradise. Just the terrible distance between what had been promised and what was real. Gregor MacGregor did not need an army. He did not need cities. He did not need laws. He only needed paper, a map, a title, a currency, a story, and enough people hopeful enough to believe it. Because Poyais was not built in Central America. It was built in the minds of its victims. And by the time they saw the truth, they were already standing inside the lie. This was the Grift Files, the country that never was.